So when I first met today's guest, they immediately reminded me of this one book that I've had for many years by Kenya Hara. He's one of the leading designers in Japan. He's the author of Designing Design, and I have a book by him called Designing Japan. That was the very first book of his that I read. But one of the things he says in the book is that design is a way to communicate ideas and values. And when I saw the design of what today's guest was creating for people, I was like, wow, this is a person who is really serious about the ideas and values they want to communicate when it comes to teaching people about generative AI. I first met Ola when she enrolled in our online course, the AI Bootcamp. And as many of our students do, she went on to create her own course and lead the AI conversation in her area. Ola Handford is co-founder and academic director of MindMakers, a consultancy which helps businesses and education providers to learn, create, and innovate better with generative AI. Ola's mission is to make AI approachable and relevant to real-world challenges. She empowers people to use AI tools effectively, enhancing their skills and solving practical problems. Her focus is on using AI to enhance human skills, not replace them. With a successful background in design industry and over a decade of design teaching experience across the UK, China, and the UAE, Ola brings a unique perspective to AI education. She's known for creating adaptive learning strategies for diverse groups, including ESOL students and interdisciplinary teams. Now, she's applying this expertise to develop AI literacy programs that spark innovation and creativity in both business and education. I begin by asking Ola, what are the ideas and values that really matter to her when designing how she is going to teach AI?
Yeah, I really like that you mentioned Kim, because it's one probably the designer I find really interesting, and I love the simplicity. I love the functionality, and I also really appreciate the connections with a cultural context, because he brings that to the brands. I find it very inspiring, particularly living in Asia. But yeah, coming back to your question. So when I sat down to design the first AI courses, my background is in education, is design education. But when I started thinking about design AI courses, I set up the key values. And I stuck to those values throughout. And the first thing was accessibility. Not concentrating within AI, because it is a tech thing. You've got so much jargon and with prompt engineering and all of those terms, which I really dislike, because working with generative AI today is much more of a human thing. It's much more of a social skill or a human skill rather than a tech skill. It was always my objective to design courses which are for everybody, and they're easy to engage with, so they're not techy. So that's one value. The second value, which I find very important, is the relevance to our day-to-day life, because it's quite easy to get into some rabbit hole and see, oh, how cool is this tool? And I can do so many gimmicky things and design a snake game and create the pink inflatable images of Eiffel Tower and God knows what else. And I don't think people want it. There's a bit of entertainment in all of that, but people want practical solutions. They've got their day-to-day challenges. They don't have time. They don't want to do another master's degree in something. They just want to know how to resolve my day-to-day problems. So when we look at the AI, we're just finding those workflows and those very practical things which we're finding right tools, and we're trying to work out how to use those tools. And the third one is, my courses or the way I talk about AI is very much based on building creativity and critical thinking. So it is not about technical skills. It's about finding those ways how the tools, whichever ones people use, can build their human skills. So I think that's the three values.
I could tell by looking at your work, that's the kind of expertise and area that you're in. And I feel like we don't hear that commentary enough when it comes to AI, because you're right. Not only can this app or this little trick take you down the rabbit hole, but it can take you down 10 rabbit holes every single day, to where you feel maybe like you're learning AI or using AI. But there was actually, I think it was Routers that just did a study saying that like a lot of people use it once or twice, but only about 7% integrate it into their day-to-day in a practical way. And I think that's a really big why, because if we're going to educate people on just, oh, here's this trick, or here's this app, or here's this, you don't understand workflows. And I feel like just the fact that you use that word is like, oh, it's such a breath of fresh air. And I think it's also really great because I hear you talk a lot about even in you. First of all, if somebody is not following you on LinkedIn, they should absolutely be following you, because I love the nuances that you pull out. And I think that's another really big missing piece that I see today is like the lack of nuance in the conversation. I love how you extract those pieces about, hey, this is what was working, this is what we did, but this is what I noticed. A lot of that I think is because you do a lot of things that are very social with your students. It's very activity driven, activity based. And you're also talking a lot about problem solving, critical thinking, all things that also require social and human skills. And so I would love to hear you tell us a little bit about what the skills are that you think really matter right now for people as we see these AI tools, like members of our team here to help us and assist us. What
Yeah.
are those human
Yeah.
skills that you see that really matter?
Well, I think one is the mindset. It's having the right mindset to AI. And I don't think it's particular to AI. I think it's generally a mindset to life and taking on any challenge. But I think because AI is developing so quickly, it's quite confusing. It can be quite overwhelming. It can create lots of anxiety as well. You hear those voices, oh, is it going to take away my job? It also brings lots of ethical issues. So I think particularly for people who work in education, this is a big barrier. So there's lots of problems, there's lots of difficulties, lots of barriers, but developing this mindset which is based on curiosity and this mindset where we all lifelong learners. We have to keep learning, and AI just happened, and we do have to make sense out of it. So approaching it with a curiosity, experimentation, and certain openness is really important, because AI is where it is right now. It doesn't always work, and we all know that it's at the beginning. We are at the beginning of the journey. So I would say a curiosity and this approach to learning is very important. I think the second one, which is really key, and that's what I'm trying to teach my students, is clear communication. And I think it's the same way, like when you start a job or you start your career, you have to learn how to communicate with different people. You learn how to communicate with your boss, with your colleagues, with your assistant, and with your children, and so on. It's the way you communicate to engage with people and also make them do what you want them to do. There's a skill in that. There is a skill needed to make AI do what you want it to do. What I can see actually in that sort of training we do is that people take those skills back to real life and real people. They've got those moments where they realize something. Oh my God, I'm not clear. If I work with my team, with the human team, I actually can bring some of those skills and become much clearer. And then I think that the skill which is really essential is critical thinking, because it's very easy to actually waste lots of time working with AI. And it's very easy to create content which is not very good. Evaluating, reflecting on what we're producing, why we're producing something is actually pretty important as well.
Yeah, oh my God, I love that. And I think that's so important, not just as a creator, but also as a consumer. What criteria are we setting as well for what we want to consume, what we're going to accept as okay and as the bar for ourselves? I think that's, you also really remind me of Levy and Murnane. I don't know if you've seen it, but they wrote this paper in 2013. It's so hard to believe. But back then they wrote this like really good paper called Dancing with Robots. And the paper was really all about how in the age of AI, there are two things that are going to really matter for human skills and for humans to do. And it's literally what you just said. It's that complex problem solving, but also complex communication. And I think today there's so much like polarization, so many opinions, and you also have so many different opinions coming at you because of just how much access we have to information, that it's really hard these days sometimes to get people to align around an outcome or a vision or something along those lines. But I do want to go back to something that you talked about, which was mindset, because I think, like you said, it's so important, not just with AI, but with everything. And I think when people think about design, I was thinking about this, I got this like as I was thinking about our conversation. But a lot of times when we think about design as well, we always think about the outside. But I feel like mindset is like your inner aesthetic. It's what people can't see, but they'll be able to feel just through how you nurture it and through who you are and who you would become. And so I'd love to hear from you, like, what kinds of struggles do you see with people when it comes to mindset, and how do you help them in that space?
When it comes to mindset and AI, I think it's empowering people with tools. It's step by step, showing them very simple, very practical applications. They can build the skills, they can become comfortable. And I think it takes, from my experience, 10, 15 hours of playing around with some tools to actually develop this confidence and see that, okay, I can actually use it for something else. This understanding that those tools may apply to something else in their lives. So that would be the main thing. And then we talk a lot about ethics in the trainings, and it's a tough one because there's lots of gray zones, and it's such a new area, so there's lots to be discussed. But I think lots of anxieties come from the sort of fear or understandings, like things about copyrights, things about copying other people, originality, how it influences our creative thinking, how it influences our self-development. And there is lots of things inspired by sci-fi. So there's lots of this fear, will robots come and kill us at some point, and Black Mirror type of thing. There is actually lots of discussions which happens during the trainings, which brings people fears and hopes. And I think this mindset of building the curiosity and overcoming anxieties would be probably the very important part to address.
Absolutely. And what is the age range of students that you're usually working with?
I usually work with adults. It's predominantly young professionals. I work a lot with universities. We offer courses to universities where we incorporate AI tools into design programs. And we do a significant amount with high schoolers, but that's a smaller growing group.
I love that because I think right now there's also so many assumptions around what students are doing, how they're using it, how they're thinking about it. What are some of the things that you're actually hearing as you work with them?
The younger students, or you mean the
I think
university students?
high school and university. I think that's where there's already this assumption. I think it was like Microsoft that put out the report that like 66% of leaders and educators are like worried that students are going to use this to cheat. 52% of students are worried that someone's going to accuse them of cheating. And so I just think there's so many assumptions that we're making about kids know how to use AI, they're using it in this way, and they're doing XYZ. And that's really I feel like a lot of people's decisions are being driven by assumptions. And so since you work with especially like university students, high school students, what are some of the things you hear them saying, asking, and actually using it for?
It really varies, actually. And I can see that it really varies on the institution that they're based in and the approach of institution. But I would say majority of them use it. Like half a year ago, when I asked students to raise their hand who is using it, it was probably half and half. Right now, it will be close to 100%. They're not guided, so they use it for whatever they can work out, which is the simplest things, the most rudimental things. Write an essay for me. Oh, this is my homework, do the homework for me. So I'd say that's what they use it. And they use it also in social media, so Snapchat, my friend, and things like this. But the problem is that they're not guided. So they feel guilty about it. But just to give you an example, I did recently a course myself online, and the part of the course was quizzes. Each module was finishing with the quizzes. And the course was phenomenal. I really enjoyed it. I wanted to finish it. And I got stuck on those quiz with 7 questions asking me, how do I define something? And so, this is pointless. I'm losing my time. So what I've done, I copied, pasted it to ChatGPT and gave me ABC answers. And I skipped through it and went to the part I was interested in. If I do it, I cannot blame students doing something if they don't see the point of doing hard work. So I think this whole discussions about cheating is completely wrong, because they cheat when they don't see the value of the particular exercise or particular assignment to start with. And then they use it because in a simple way, because they don't know how to use it in a more complex way. They don't know how to use AI to actually inspire them to find something interesting, to find solutions. And I think that's where is the big gap coming from education and from teachers, that we have this responsibility to engage students with AI.
Oh my God, absolutely. And I think it's so interesting that you say you can tell based on the institution they're coming from, because I imagine very quickly it's going to be very clear like which organizations are preparing students for the future, which ones are not. The same way I think companies go and recruit from places, like I think certain places are going to get that kind of reputation. So even thinking from an enrollment kind of marketing standpoint, teaching students is important. But I love that you say that not teaching them this is unethical, because I think a lot of times again, when we talk about ethics, I think a lot of times adults are always looking at things from their perspective. So the person who gave you the quiz probably thought that there was so much value in the quiz and it was essential for you to do, but you disagreed. I feel like that's the opportunity people in general don't get, is being able to think through. It's okay that one person maybe doesn't find value in something and that somebody else does. And being
Mm.
okay and comfortable with that, I think, is a really hard thing for a lot of people. But I feel, again, that's where assumptions comes in as a challenge for people who are creating instruction, because they just believe, no, you need to have this. Like, what are some of the things that you see or that you help adults with in kind of making that transition, or even just having that dialogue with students?
I think the dialogue with students is so. I really love project-based teaching, and at the university and even high schools, we're trying to set up project-based little modules or little units. And I find working with art and design is actually really aligned with AI. Quite often when we work with high schoolers, we create an art project or a design project, and we create a life on Mars or a creative den or things like this. AI is incorporated. We inspire them with the bigger challenge, with the storytelling of something that they can create. And AI fits step by step to different challenges they do. And then they can start thinking that this is useful. It makes my work, it makes my challenge more manageable. It gives me better ideas. It helps me to position my ideas better. So they can see the direct influence on a whole project, on a whole idea, whole challenge, rather than this write me a bit of text.
No, that's so true. So, and I think there's a lot of people that actually are really interested in making that transition. What is some advice you give to those people, or how do you recommend they get started in making that transition?
And there's so much available right now. It sounds like a little bit too much. I work with institutions quite a bit, and we suggest this approach of developing practice lead, looking at the team, looking who has got indication to work with AI or who is the one who already has experimented with it, and work much closer with them, giving them a little bit more space to develop their skills, develop their ideas, and they become internal experts. Teaching AI to everybody in a team, I think there is a level of basic AI literacy which needs to be introduced to that whole team, but I think it's quite small. I think working with those practice area leaders so they can master AI in their day-to-day challenges, they become ambassadors and they transfer this knowledge to the rest of the team in a way which is acceptable within this institution. So it addresses the actual needs and fears and context of the particular institution. So that's how we usually work, rather than creating a massive program which promises to resolve all the problems for the whole school or a business or an agency. Let's do step by step and see what actually works. And I think there's so much enthusiasm around AI on social media and in the sorts of influencers. The truth is, it doesn't deliver always. It does create variety of problems. So working through that in a very practical way I think, is a solution to actually make people engage and adopt AI as an institution.
Are there certain places that you see are adopting AI? Because I think a lot of times people, they are so overwhelmed by all the information that's out there. Like you said, there's like too much, not even when it comes to just like project based and things like that, but like just the space in general. Are there institutions where you're like, we see these people do this well, and these are some of the steps they're taking to get there?
I think there's multiple institutions. I don't know any institution fully adopted AI. I think we're still on this level of early adopters, but there is a plenty of practitioners which do very interesting stuff. I must admit, I find LinkedIn very interesting because you can connect with people around the world, and then you find there's a person in Australia doing something interesting, so a person somewhere else doing something interesting. And I think the sense of building a community where we can learn from each other. You tried that worked, you tried something else, and that works, builds our experience. And I think we all early adopters, it's still a learning curve. We are experimenting right now.
Yeah, no, definitely. And so I know you have a course where you're teaching this as well. So who are you designing the courses for? And do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. We actually have two courses. We work very much on tailored approaches. So we work with different organizations, with different businesses, and we adjust courses around it. But they are within sort of two areas. And one is AI bootcamp, where we're introducing the basics of AI to any professional setting and any sort of office work. And the second one is AI plus design, where we specialize and we're working with design agencies. So within a design agency, like interior design agency, product design agency, we deliver a basic AI literacy course for a whole team, and then we work with them very closely to incorporate AI into their process. So we work both with text-based and image-based tools.
Oh, that's amazing. What are some aha moments that you see from people who come in from this like design world? Because I think design and art and this entire space is one where people feel like AI is the most threatening. But I agree with you earlier when you were like art and AI have this like beautiful intersection. We work with an organization as well, Santa Ana Unified, and their arts department has honestly been at the forefront of leading this, integrating this, thinking about this. And so I agree with you that even though on like at first glance it looks like AI and art is intimidating and it's very vulnerable, I actually find that group to really, really be able to own and lead the narrative and the conversation. And so I'm just curious to hear from like the course and things like that. What are some aha moments, like people who come in, they're maybe thinking one way, and then there's an experience that allows them to see something differently?
I think that the aha moment is realizing that AI can help with creativity, which initially, so we always do this sort of assessment before we start the course and people opinions levels and so on. And the things which comes on the beginning is people are worried that I will make design very average. So the ideas will become very homogeneous. It's a really good worry because there is a risk in it. There's a real risk in it. But then depends how you use it. So introduce variety of exercises around innovation training. So around, for example, innovation sprint, and or with the visual experimentation, where we try to push the tools to actually come up with more creative ideas. One of the exercises we do with Midjourney is visual brainstorming. So we're looking at a variety of references. The exercise which we're doing right now is looking at the patterns from Chinese pottery. So there's traditional drawings and paintings, and we're trying to transfer them into a modern design. So we're looking how those patterns can influence the shapes of furnitures and textiles and visual communication. This is not a groundbreaking exercise in design. We would do it in a training anyway, but when you throw AI into it, it creates very unexpected connections. You still need a person to guide it and judge it and take it into the right direction. But because you've got so much stimulation, so many different areas, you start seeing these connections where I never thought about it. How to change those shapes, how to change those colors into this object. It does influence the way we work. I think it pushes the boundaries, creativity in a way of creating connections between different things.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting to hear you say that because I'm curious, like, how did your journey in AI begin? Because you have such great nuances and things. Like, were you always interested in AI? Like, how did this kind of become an area for you to be?
So I work in many years in commercial design and strategy and research for design, and we use AI in a variety of ways. When you design a space, there's a variety of sort of storytelling tools and then VR, AR, projection mapping, and many different things. And I think I've done the first AI course 2019 with Parsons, and that was about AI and creativity. So it was there for many years, but I never had a particular interest. I never had, oh my God, this is amazing. It was one of the things I was using in design and strategy. And then ChatGPT happened. And I think that created a big shockwave for the design industry and design education, because at that point I was working with students in China who are applying for top universities in States or in the UK. I was running a couple of programs with them, and they started using ChatGPT straight away because they challenges, they're not native speakers. So it was like a perfect tool. The problem was that they started straight away creating those embarking on transformative journey type of text, and it like didn't work. And we were in the situations like they just making the application. If this goes to American universities, to the UK universities, they will fail straight away, because that was the time when everybody was banning ChatGPT or AI. So we like straight away had to create programs like, okay, we know you will be using it. We cannot ban you from using it. So how can we teach you to use it in an appropriate way, in a way which respects academic integrity? So straight away, we started working on a program, AI plus academic skills, where we started using ChatGPT for research, for ideation, how to enhance critical thinking. So they had this sense that, okay, fine, we can use it, but we can use it in particular ways, not the other ways. And that sort of grew to developing much more programs around AI in design and AI in a workplace.
No, oh, that's amazing. I love like all the different areas of that you're covering and teaching people. And one of those areas that you are leaning into in true design, fashion, thinking about all your stakeholders is really thinking about the parent community as well. I think it's such an interesting time because I really think, I don't know if there's been a time before where we've had a change come that everybody at every level is experiencing at the same time. I feel like it's always been like, of having to think about the future for the next generation. But a parent is using AI, kids are dealing with AI, everyone's dealing with AI. What are some of the things that you do to support the parent community, and how did that begin?
It began exactly a year ago, or a year and a bit ago. But last summer, we started offering courses for parents, and we had this sort of a summer series of publications on Instagram and LinkedIn with the games parents can play with their kids. And we had a Friday night challenge where we're collecting the ideas. How can you start introducing AI to your family? And it came from my personal interest. I've got two kids, and I was very interested how it's going to influence them and worry how it's going to influence them because they were using it. And I introduced them to ChatGPT straight away. It was my own fault. But they were getting those messages from school, oh, it's cheating, you should not be using it. So there was like a clash. And it was my personal worry, where is it going? Is it actually going to damage their education and their critical thinking or not? So I started exploring the subjects with a group of parents, with a handful of workshops. And I must admit that a year ago, there's very little interest in it. So you had the sort of parents which were enthusiasts or really, really early adopters, which saw the point of introducing it to children. But most parents didn't see a point. They were concerned about their own work. They were prepared to invest time and money to upskill because of their work situation. But the sort of influence on children was not on the radar yet. And right now it's really changing. I think right now parents start seeing that there is an opportunity to bring AI to their kids, how they can actually benefit it. And they also worry quite a bit. And rightly, because we're dealing with deep fakes, we've got horrific situations where kids are able to create images very quickly and they don't realize the impact of those things. There is a risk of privacy and security of data. I can see that there is much more interest right now within the families or within parents' communities, how to incorporate AI to their family lives, particularly if they're working with schools which are not adopting AI that fast.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. I am curious to hear from you because this is actually a big problem a lot of people that we see are dealing with. And that is in the early days, there were a lot of people that told students AI is cheating, and they really embedded that idea into their mind. And it's been very hard for a lot of people to undo that narrative, to then show them, like, no, actually, it can help you in these ways and do those kinds of things. And I'm curious if that's something that you see as well, just even in your own kids and the ones that you work with.
Oh, definitely. It's both in both cases. The paradox is they still use it. They just feel guilty about it. So it's like we clearly making a mistake as adults, right? We have to address it because banning something does not make people stop doing things. They just hide it better. If we're creating a ground for that sort of situation, it's a very negative situation for everybody.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's so funny you say that because there's a lot of places where they'll have a student on a panel and we'll hear like students talk about AI. And I always notice how out of their way they go to let everyone in the room know they think it's cheating. And I'm just like, this is like
Yeah.
so sad because it's just so counter to the narrative that we hear from like the workplace that no, we want
Yeah.
people with AI skills. We want you to show us your AI skills. And there was actually, I think, that Microsoft Work Trend Index. I thought it was so fascinating. One of the things they said in there was how they are valuing AI skills over years
Mm.
of
Yeah.
experience. I was just like, that's such a huge discrepancy at a really important time for kids to
Yeah.
have this mindset. But speaking of like the future careers and all these different things, I am curious, like, what degree of control do you feel humans have in the design of what comes next?
Um, I think when it comes to future careers, there's a few sort of aspects to it. And what I can really see, I work with design agencies, they hungry for knowledge and they hungry for introducing AI. So when it comes to employing new staff, if there's a graduate or an intern coming with AI skills, they definitely will prefer this one in comparison to a person who does not have this experience, because they're bringing this wave of change to the team. So when I work with university students, I tell them this is your advantage right now. And the market in design is tricky. It's a difficult market right now. It's not that many jobs that they used, and they're not necessarily that well paid as they used to be. So differentiating yourselves among many graduates and many junior designers makes a difference. So putting this effort into building your AI skills makes a difference. And that also allows them to climb the ladder much quicker, because the older guys don't really have expertise in AI. So they leave the space to the younger people. So I would say this is the change which I can see from practice, definitely.
That's so interesting. Do you feel like most students are ready to build that kind of portfolio? Like, obviously, your students are going to be, because I can see the projects you're doing with them on LinkedIn. But do you feel like this is something that like most students are being prepared with?
No, definitely not. And I can see working with a variety of academics in Europe, in China, some in America, there are people who do amazing stuff, and they really push the boundaries, and quite often against the institution. They experiment, they bring ideas in. But looking at the sort of average situations of average students, average institution, no, they still kept in this sort of area. It will hurt your critical thinking, it will hurt your creativity, it will make design really bad, and all of that. So I think we do have some, soul searching to do within design education, definitely. So
So tell us a little bit. You're with MindMakers. Tell us what you're looking forward to and what's coming up next.
MindMakers is growing. We are based both in China and in the UK, in London. We offer a variety of courses. So the business is separated into AI plus business and AI plus education. We offer basic AI literacy and AI plus design for a variety of businesses. The second part of MindMakers is education. We work with universities, students, and teachers in the area of design and arts, to bring education and experiment with education. One of the projects that I'm working on right now is exploring collaborations with universities and how we can offer our AI expertise to incorporate it into a variety of modules and programs universities work with.
I love that. And what is the best way for people to reach out to you? Like, I'm going to link all of your information and shout out your LinkedIn again, because I just love the stories from the field that you share. But what is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
I think LinkedIn is very good. We're quite active sharing what we're doing. We've got Instagram as well, and we obviously got websites where we share the details of all the courses and things we do.
Amazing. And I came across your work because you were part of the boot camp, and I would love to just have you share a little bit about your experience inside the course.
Yeah, so I came across your course a while ago, I think just after you released it. And I think the first thing I saw was a webinar. So you're offering those live webinars now and then. And I loved how the bootcamp is about AI, but you don't actually talk about AI only. We managed to talk about design thinking, bring variety of inspirational books. It's more like kind of like a lifestyle, or how to improve your life in a whole, rather than concentrating on particular AI tools and tricks. And that comes across in your training. So you bring your energy to it, but it's much more like a guiding through life type of approach than a techie type of training. So I really enjoyed it. And I think I went through it within a couple of days. I think it's designed to do it much longer, but I've done it really quickly, and it was enjoyable. And I think that's quite often what we're missing in AI trainings, that they are enjoyable to listen and enjoyable to do exercises rather than just learning particular things.
I agree with you. I think that's my own experience too. Like I sign up for all these courses and they're so hard to get through and you don't do them. But I feel like there is so much benefit in online learning, in virtual learning, and hybrid learning. And I think just like with AI, if we can model great experiences for people, then more people will hopefully adopt that approach to how we do things. And so I'm so excited. Again, I just want to shout out your LinkedIn again because I just so enjoy following you and the stories that you share. But thank you so much for coming on here and like sharing your expertise and just spending some time with us. So thank you.
Oh, thank you very much for inviting me. I really enjoyed chatting with you. And yeah, hope people will get in touch and we can continue the conversation.